my Oddworld account.
Oh yeah, for
That's
sure.
like my worst.
I bet. Man, this is a look.
I love it. You
You
look
know-
beautiful.
You know, I've only taken this necklace twice off ever.
Why?
In my life.
Why would you take it off?
Because I got arrested.
Oh.
That's it. That's it.
You have to do that.
Yep, they force you to. But I don't know how to take it off. So it was really embarrassing because I'm standing there fucking butt naked because you have to take everything off. And
I'm
I
so
was
happy you
I
got
was
arrested.
trying to figure out how
I
to
feel
take
like
this
there's a
off.
lore to you.
There-
The lore of Kyle.
There's a lot. But I was trying to take this off and I don't know how. So I'm already mortified and super embarrassed. And my little delightful pudgy naked body, I was just like, hello, sir? And
Can I have help?
The cop looks at me and is like, I don't know how to take this necklace off. Can you help? And the guy thought I was fucking with him, but I wasn't. So then he had to come up and stand right behind my naked little body and take my necklace off.
I can't be a cop. Be like, yeah, baby, it's
Yeah.
fine.
Dude, without fail, I don't know. There's something about my personality. Cops fucking hate me.
It's because
And
you're
they're-
different.
And they're really angry the whole time they're dealing with me, always.
It's because you're different.
It's also because I smile a lot. And when I'm not even nervous, when my fight or flight gets engaged.
You smile.
I-
No, I've seen you.
Yeah.
I've seen you play Dead Space. You're horrible.
Yeah, exactly.
You're awful.
That's
I'm over here like,
that's literally.
and Robert's like, hello?
Yeah.
And then you're over here like,
Yeah. Is that a friend?
this is good. Friend,
Yeah,
friend.
but that is how I behave, and so when I deal with cops and I'm like, fuck, I don't want this fine or whatever, like I immediately turn into this like quasi comedian, and they hate that.
If anything, it's a good deflection thing.
Yeah.
Because, like, there are some times where I need to have a hard conversation and I can't help but, like, deflect.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are totally talking about vampires. Totally.
Hey, there's people.
Hey, what's going on?
Hi. Well, so then I guess we can kind of quasi start for anybody who is here, even though you're probably our friends. If you are, thanks. If you're
I
not,
love you.
If you're not
Welcome.
specifically friends, then thanks for being here. As always, my name's Kyle, and I'm an amateur creepyologist, I suppose.
That's actually really good. You are a lore core
That's
enthusiast.
fact. It is.
He says he's an amateur. This man probably should have had.
I did take a lot of
degrees by
classes
now.
on these subjects. Did I get a degree with them? No, but if I did one more semester, I'd have 4 degrees because I'm smart. It's not a good thing that I just let those float there.
Hey, stress doesn't do. It's not a thing for you.
It's fine.
It's not a thing for you.
And then this is obviously Ashley.
And I am also I'm here to have fun and I'm here to have discussions. And I'm here to talk about creepy shit and weird shit. And this is what we do as two best friends. We've been doing this since high school. We talk about weird, stupid shit.
Always.
And we love it.
And we learn from each other, and it's a good time. So hopefully you have a good time.
Like, he'll know things I don't know. I know things he'll don't know. And then there are sometimes we're like, oh, we're both dumb. I don't understand it.
Yeah. To preface that, though, anything that we talk about on this show is theoretically should be right. We do our research. We rehash beforehand. We make sure that the stuff we're pulling from is
We
both...
do this as a hobby, and we are not professionals.
Which we only go to say, if we get something wrong, we're not trying to mislead you. This isn't fake mythology or fake news. This is just... We're a little bit dumb, and this is a hobby of ours. We are not experts.
We love to do this thing. This is literally an excuse for two best friends to hang out and talk about nerd. And I'm updating Twitter.
Excellent.
I'm just like, yeah.
Which leads directly into our wonderful third point, which is this is an ADD-friendly podcast. Both of us are just rife with ADD. We will go on tangents that have nothing to do with the topic at hand. And hopefully you enjoy that ride. And if you have any topics that we would like to go over, feel free.
What's our next week's? We have to look at the sheet.
We'll have to
look at the sheet. We have
totally
it
remember.
all planned out.
But there is something.
But okay, so vampires.
So,
Do you think they're real?
no, but I do think that blood drinkers are.
Yeah,
'cause, you know,
that's like a whole cult thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think it can sustain off it. I think it's more of a show thing. But I do love how literally every country in the world, every culture has a vampire.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
just this. Do you think it's a fear that just accumulates into a personified version where they can have some control over, like when they dig up old bodies where they're not decaying properly, especially if it's in a cold area, and they're like, if we get the heart, and if we burn the heart, and if we eat the ashes, yes, king, we are alive.
I think that, honestly, so many supernatural things, many, are just fear of disease. And vampires might be the almost the poster boy for that concept.
But now they're too hot. They're too fuckable.
Yeah.
They're too fuckable.
Well, and that's actually...
Anne Rice, thank you.
Even before, Anne Rice and Bram Stoker, before the commodification of vampires... did you nail it? Did you do a good job?
Yeah, I'm trying not to suck it. I got a tooth pulled out recently, so I'm trying not to suck things.
Oh.
And also I have lipstick on.
So that combo.
Oh yeah, it's really good. My dainty, tiny mouth, according to the dentist.
I mean, you do have a small mouth. That's true.
So, but I really want to read the book. I
like her. It probably sounded right. Probably.
No, I got tooth pulled out. You can't see it because I have a retainer in, so it doesn't look like I'm redneck. But
yeah.
That was really cool last night at the party. I was like, "Want to see a magic trick?"
I love that.
It's still bloody and
Are you getting the veneer?
Yes. Well, I'm getting an implant. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. It was fine. Like, I'm completely fine. They injected me with a lot of medicine, and I was like, "This is great."
That's awesome.
It felt like I had an engine in my mouth. They're like, "Ah," and I was like, "This is great. I'm having a great time."
I have incredibly sharp teeth, like problematically sharp, and every time I go to the dentist, without fail, they always want to file them down.
Yeah, no.
And I'm like, no, I like that they're really sharp. And they're like,
also, do you think I should get a vampire tooth?
Yes, just one. You'll be like Ryoko. We'll just have the one little thing.
I love Ryoko.
Everybody loves Ryoko.
I love Ryoko.
There's you don't have to be a weeb. Ryoko makes you gay. Period.
Owl House has a character based off Ryoko. My friend.
Oh yeah.
She went into a tangent. She's like, she's based off Ryoko.
No,
she's
clearly
character,
is,
and I'm like, I love it. I love it.
It's also like obviously is even the like color palettes and stuff she uses are Ryoko. Oh yeah. Luckily she's not slurring, which is that's.
If I do sound like I'm slurring, let me know. I do have a retainer in, so I will take it out if it is affecting my speech.
You definitely.
It will look horrible. It will look awful. It will totally change my face. It looks horrible. It's horrible.
It actually doesn't. If it was more centralized,
like here,
then it would look. Yeah, then it would look horrible. Instead, it looks like you were in a fight.
Yeah.
Especially on the side there, because that's where you get punched. So.
Okay, so back to vampires, because we're ADD.
Yeah. So.
Have they always had this resurgence because I feel like we kind of go through so many years where we go through zombies, then we go through vampires, then we go through werewolves, then we go through something else, and then something else, and then we have vampires again, like Anne Rice. When did Interview with a Vampire come out, like in the 80s or 90s?
In the movie?
90s. Well, the 90s, but like the book.
I don't actually know when the book dropped.
Because I think that's when it made it horny.
Oh, it started,
like modernly horny.
Yeah. Well,
who is the high gilded lady?
Yeah, and Rachel does have a very special affinity for Ryoko.
Well, good. I'll go get it. Sure. I'll go get a sharp tooth. I'll be like.
I'm fucking finishing my sharp teeth thing real quick.
Okay.
But the dentist asked me if I ever have bit off pieces of my tongue or anything, and I'm like, yeah. And they're like, that's not normal. I was like, it's gotta be because it happens all the time.
It's fine. What are you talking about?
Same with the inside of my cheeks. Like the inside of my cheeks are just scarred all the way down them. Yeah. And it's because my teeth
I kind of want to look at the inside of your cheeks. Like I just me and Rachel hold you down and I get a flashlight.
Riley's are worse because she anxiously chews her cheeks. And I don't do that. For every single one of mine is an accident. But yeah.
I'm gonna look at scars on my teeth.
Moral of the story though is I'd be a good vampire. If I bit somebody's jugular, it's all going in there. All that blood's mine.
Would you want to be a vampire?
God no.
Would y'all want to be a vampire?
I
couldn't. Okay, the sun. No.
I think the question you do. I think the question's a little loaded though because you almost have to answer like which vampire.
That's true.
Because like the each era, the vampire gets more restrictions or less restrictions, or they're sexy or they're not sexy. Because, like, if the only cost is being sparkly and immortality, like, fuck yeah. Bring on being a vampire.
Honestly, if I got to be a manananggal, which is, like, it's a mythical creature in, like, in Filipino, and what happens is it's when a woman, it's like her upper body disconnects, or her torso disconnects from her body and her intestines hang, and she sucks on pregnant women's blood. I'm like, that doesn't sound fun. I don't want that. Like, I'm fine. I don't need to know the I don't need eternal life, but I don't want to disconnect from my body. Yeah. That's not hot. Like, I want to be hot. Yeah. Like, I want to be Pam from True Blood. That's who I want to be, which is a great show, by the way, and you should watch the first 5 seasons or first 4.
So, in true Kyle fashion, I'm going to kind of go into origins here. Yeah. Because origins are my favorite. So, when I talk about vampire a lot of the time today, I'm talking basically like the iconic kind of Romanian vampire. There's a reason it's the iconic one, and it's not at all what you're thinking. Dracula's only a tiny, 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 tiny piece of the equation. But ultimately, if you want to roll it all the way back, vampires start in Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
Just like fucking everything else.
I think Mesopotamia is the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
Like, in my opinion.
It kind of has
started
to
there.
be. Because,
everything started there.
And all mythology can be traced back to Samaria. And that is true as well for the vampire. So before you can even talk about the origin of vampires, you got to talk about those things which inspire vampires.
Mm-hmm.
The first,
Tuberculosis!
well, yeah, TB1, high five.
And death, and bloating, and extended nails, and long hair.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's just one of those things where your skin shrinks back from lack of water. So it makes it like, I love it. I love old school stupidity.
Yeah.
Because guess what? I would be with them. I'd be like, this happened, did God vampire.
Here's the thing, though, is like, it's really, really, really easy for us, and often they were just fucking stupid as hell.
Yeah.
But it's really easy for us to look back at those assumptions and go like, wow, that's a huge jump in logic. But realistically, like, the whole process
don't have any
of
explanation for anything.
Right. And the whole process of science is you guess and then you examine proof, and you keep doing that over and over and over. So of course our first guesses at these things
I love a
sucked.
folklore scientist. I love the idea of a folklore scientist.
Oh, they existed. They're everywhere.
I know. I love that.
I mean, early demonologists.
I feel like you would be that person.
Oh, I would.
Yeah.
I would also probably be a bastard about it, though. But early demonologists, they didn't view themselves as folklorists or even tied to religion. They viewed themselves as scientists.
Yeah.
And, like, that's so interesting because their science was demons.
Yeah.
But, so, if you roll it back all the way to Sumeria, the first, not the first, but one of the first truly vampiric creatures we come across is Lamashtu. And Lamashtu isn't a species of creature. There's just one.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to talk about them. It's okay. Just know the name Lamashtu. That's great. Lamashtu ends up being the basis for two myths that come about at basically the same time. And what's really weird about mythology that a lot of people misunderstand when learning about it is that as myths parallel play, they do a lot of bumping into each other.
Yeah.
So you can have two myths that both inspire each other, that both came at the same time.
Yeah.
But they still inspire each other.
Yeah.
So these two, one is Lamia, or the Lamia. Or Lamia. I'm not
Labia?
Greek. I'm not Greek, so I don't know how I'm supposed to pronounce that A. But the other, or much more familiar with, is Lilith. And Lilith...
I love Lilith.
I also love Lilith.
I love Lilith.
So, super nutshell is, I'm going to talk about the Lamia, Greek mythology here. Mm-hmm. So, in Greek mythology, and also, quick ADD aside, but an important one, just for any episode, not just vampires. Mm-hmm. A lot of people misunderstand this. This is weird. This blows people's minds, but it's true. Jewish mythology and Greek mythology are siblings. And
I did not know that.
Most people don't. So Jewish mythology is older, but not by a lot.
Yeah.
And its codification into actual, texts, that comes way after Greek mythology. So, burgeoning young Jewish mythology and Greek mythology constantly played with each other like cogs.
Yeah.
And when a Greek myth would come up, it would end up entering the Jewish lexicon. And there's characters in Judaism that are straight up, you can point to the Greek myth and go, there they are. That's where they came from. And vice versa. There are Greek myths that started off as Jewish mythology.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you wouldn't associate those two different religions, especially because Judaism was one of the only really prominent monotheistic religions. Well, the Lamia and Lilith are an example of both religions were attempting, not consciously, to take Lamashtu from Sumerian folklore and tell it in their way.
Yeah.
And so the story of Lamashtu / Lamia is, there's a lady.
Yeah.
She's the queen of Libya.
Love it.
I don't know why specifically Libya, but she is. And in Greek mythology, Zeus comes and does his Zeus stuff.
I love Zeus. Zeus is just like, I don't care, I'm gonna get mine.
Zeus
He's
fucks.
horrible. I love him.
Yeah, he fucks in such special ways. There's one story where he actively does water sports in the myth. That's great. That's great.
On people. I love that.
It's just in one myth.
I love that.
But the fact that it's there is delightful. Yay, ancient world. So, she gets pregnant, and she's like, hell yeah, demigod babies. This is going to be awesome. I'm the Queen Olivia.
Would you let Zeus fuck you if you were guaranteed a demigod baby?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with a yes.
Okay.
But,
high five, me too.
Nice. Okay, but I'm not doing it for the demigod baby. I'm doing it so I can tell people I fuck Zeus.
That's true.
I
want to fuck him in his true form. I want to be Chard Ash.
Yeah. I like that. That's fun.
That's what I want.
I kind of want to... no, I don't. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to cut myself off before I talk about more Zeus water sports. She gets pregnant, and she's kind of excited, mostly because she's already in a position of extreme power.
Yeah.
And now having demigod children is going to be a big deal. And it seems like it's going to be twins or triplets. So then Hera finds out.
Poor Hera.
Fucking Hera. Well, I
don't blame her for getting pissed, but why are you punishing
the woman? Always woman, ever Zeus.
Like, just cut his dick off, man.
Yeah, seriously.
Just blow off a Scott. What's his name? Scott something? I don't know. I'm not advocating
cutting
violence.
Off a man's pisser.
Yeah.
A pisser. That's my favorite old man term for a penis. It's
yeah, I love it.
So Hera decides that she's going to punish this woman.
Yeah.
So she waits till the children are born, and then she whisks them away.
Yeah.
And the stories aren't very clear. She probably fucking kills them. But whatever. The children are whisked away. And the woman who, her name now at this point is Lamia, but whatever. Yeah. She is so distraught and so upset at this event, not just losing her children, but specifically that the gods have fucked her so royally that they let her get her hopes up. They literally fucked her. And then they take her children, like the whole...
Yeah.
So she becomes this awful, spiteful creature while still being Queen of Libya. And she, every time she encounters a baby...
Yeah.
She eats it. Which I think's a reasonable response when you're upset. That's fine. Yeah. So that's what she does.
It's caviar. It's caviar. It's fish eggs. Hey, fish.
Oh, I see.
I'm sorry.
You're putting it together. You're clever. You're a clever one. So yeah, she starts eating babies.
Yeah.
And the act is so... now we're starting to move over into Jewish mythology.
Yeah.
The act is so abhorrent because there's almost nothing worse at all in Talmud that other than eating flesh. Like that's the ultimate no-go. More cannibalism, yay. So, because it's so monstrous, she starts transforming and becoming monstrous in appearance. And there's no curse, there's no god involvement. It just starts happening to her
It goes back on earlier conversations that we've had where your actions make you a monster.
Yeah.
Like how psychopaths have dead eyes or there's an aura about you that's wrong. And I just, that's always present lore and I love that.
It always is. And it's present in real life a bit.
Yeah.
It's a warning system in some ways that you can detect somebody who's monstrous.
Yeah. Girls, I mean, people listen to intuition, listen to that sixth sense, listen to it. It's there for a reason.
So, as she transforms, her depictions here differ hugely across different cultures.
Yeah.
So, in Babylonian and pre-Albanian depictions, she starts getting these big bird feet. And her, like, she stays like a beautiful woman, but like her extremities, her limbs start becoming strange. And then she like stops participating in society as a person.
Yeah.
So she's like...
Well, I think it'd be hard to participate when you look like that.
And you're eating babies.
Yeah.
And then in one depiction, the Lamia basically ends up being, it's like a centaur.
Yeah.
Except the bottom half's a lion instead of a horse. And she uses her lion claws to maul, and then the human half to eat babies.
Yeah.
And then the last depiction, the most common, is the kind of iconic, like, bottom half's a snake, and the top half's a thing. It's actually why sometimes people give that to Medusa. It's them taking the Lamia and Medusa and shoving them together.
The Naga thing?
Yeah.
Because that was in with the, hold on, what was the name of it? It's the, hold on.
Did you find one in another culture?
The Nuri Ona and the Iso Ona. Well, no, it's just they have the snake body.
Oh, okay.
They're just wet women.
I'm not familiar with these.
Well, I mean, the snake body.
I bet they come from her.
It resembles a reptilian creature with a woman's head.
Okay.
And what they do is they kind of wade in water and they're like, oh no, oh no. And then they're like, oh, we got to go help him. And it turns out, like, I found out their size is like 1,000 feet. They are legit water monsters, but they feed on humans and they suck their blood. And what happens is, like, you also have a wet woman, which is like the Isaona, and I apologize if I'm saying it wrong, but they drag you underwater and they use their hair to suck blood from you. Yeah. So the reptilian vampire thing is the reptilian thing is like such a huge thing in vampirism. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be related to vampirism. You're just a monster who eats people, but bloodsuckers. Blood.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, know your centaur world lore, Kyle.
No, I'm sorry.
It's a lion tar.
I'm a fool. I'm a fool for calling it a centaur with a lion half. So, that's I almost bet that could be traced back to Lamia and Lamashtu because like it's the same monster. Regardless, so she becomes this monster, and now her whole deal, she just wanders the earth, snatching up babies and generally eating them. Sometimes draining their blood, but most of the time eating. That's all fine and dandy. In Jewish myth, though, Lamia / Lamashtu ends up having, I don't even know what you would call it, pre-myths, where the monster that exists... The monster that exists is already in the lore. Yeah. Like, you know that Lilith will come and fucking eat your babies. That's what she's going to do. So... back lore starts filling in like, well, how did she become this monster? And we're not Greeks, so we don't have that part of the myth. We just have the monster. So then you get Adam's first wife. Yeah. And for those who know Lilith or don't, the general consensus on mythological Lilith is that she was, in Garden of Eden, she was Adam's first wife. She was created for Adam. And then when the first time Adam decided to boss her around, she refused to submit to his will as a man.
Well, I think she also wanted to be on top during sex. Isn't that another part of the lore? So, like, she didn't want to be submissive she just didn't want to be submissive in general. At all. Yeah,
she didn't want to.
And, like, sometimes a girl's just got to take, like, sometimes, like, y'all don't know what y'all are doing. Just give me it and I'll figure it out.
So one of the things with her, part of the reason that she's kind of been reclaimed in recent, like, pagan and Satanist circles is because, like, not only did she's
a feminist icon.
She really is. She really is. And if you go back and read some of the associated lore with her, it's not like she did anything crazy about not wanting to be submissive. Yeah. She just didn't want to be submissive. Yeah. But
because that shit gets old. Like, pet play stays in the bedroom. Thank you.
But the other piece of that, hell yeah, Borderlands love.
That's a great game.
But she ends up getting cast out of Eden entirely because, according to God's will, a woman is always supposed to be submissive to man. Yeah. So she's not working on the plan. And then in, like, the strangest of the old... Keep in mind, most of this is not Jewish canon anymore. So I could be pretty just frank about it. Nobody actively believes a lot of these Lilith myths, specifically. And actually, in Judaism, she is no longer canon at all.
I wonder why they got rid of her.
In some ways, she never was Jewish canon, but like.
But in the Torah, it mentions like Lilith was the first wife.
It doesn't.
Oh, I thought it did.
It does not. In the same way that there are books of the Bible that are non-canon, but they are books of the Bible. Yeah. It's like that. There are legit, real Jewish texts where she is mentioned. Yeah. And she is Adam's first wife. Yeah. But none of the canonical texts have ever included her except for one mention in the Old Testament. Mm-hmm. And it's not much of a mention at all. It says that owls like to sleep in her shadow.
That's fucking cool, though.
Yeah, it is.
Oh my god, what would you do if, like, Raven slipped her? Like,
oh, I know. I would take it as some form of omen, and I'm not an omen kind of guy. Yeah. But, I mean, how could you not? But, yeah, so that's Lilith in a nutshell. And then she starts, because she's expelled to Eden. Yeah. Now is where we get into play with fallen angels. Yeah. Fallen angels are like, hey, first human kicked out of Eden. Hell yeah, you must be awesome. And Lilith's like, can we all agree God's kind of a dickhead? And fallen angels like, hell yeah! So then even though she's a human, she ends up mating with Grigori, which are a class of angel that they watch. And her children are, get ready for a really intimidating, scary demon name, are called the Lilu. Ooh, Lilu. Yeah. Lilu. So the Lilu are her children, her offspring, and Babylonians and Sumerians grab they call Lilith Lilitu, Man, some of the shit I haven't heard or remembered a reference in like 10 years, and it's just like I can feel it popping back in my brain.
Yeah.
They call her Lily too.
I like how you were afraid you were underprepared, and it's like, I'm like,
I just
fine.
forget what I know
fine.
sometimes. So the Lilitu is Lilith, but Babylonian Sumerian, and it's part of also, and here's where folklore is a fucking circle. That's what inspires Lamashtu, which inspires Lamia and Lilith. But Lilith inspires Lilitu, inspires Lamashtu. It's literally an Ouroboros of inspiring each other. It is a closed circle.
Women inspiring women.
Oh, that's very good.
I know, right?
So the Lilu, though, are the first demons that are born that are not angels.
Yeah.
And their goals are not to either serve God or the Morning Star. Their goal is, I exist. Yay, demon.
Yeah.
And because they're monstrous and they're horrible, the only way that they can sustain themselves is to feast on blood.
Yeah.
So all of these religions kind of all at once agree that the children of Lamia, or Lilith, are bloodsuckers and flesh eaters.
Yeah.
And then Lilith herself, she doesn't do that, but she does eat babies. and
Hi, Nick. Hey, baby.
Hi, thanks.
What do you think?
I know, we look great. It's crazy.
Okay, it's mostly friends here. What do y'all think of the red lipstick? Does my mouth look tiny and dainty?
Not when you do that. I keep expecting like cartoon logic, like your lips be like.
I'm gonna go annoy Rachel. Rachel, you will look at my
So that's lip gloss. Lip gloss be popping. That's lipstick's job not to be popping. Also, that song sucked.
What?
My lip gloss be popping. My lip gloss be cool.
Well, guess what? It's good enough for you to remember it. Yeah. So
I heard that song for the first time in like 5 years, like 2 days ago.
Liger, women have tempers because we have to deal with men. I love you. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I can't even see it.
It's so small. No. It's such a teeny tiny. That's my new porn thing now.
Don't.
No, OnlyFans for tiny mouths. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, there's people though who will definitely, for sure. You get like yourself a baby carrot.
Don't you dare.
And then act to struggle to put it in your mouth. Like, oh, baby carrot too big. Like that. People will eat that up.
No. If you spank me, you have to spank him.
Yeah, I got a lot of flesh though, so it's easy to spank me. I'm immensely.
We were at this
spankable.
costume party yesterday, and that Babadook costume.
I was looking fine. I was looking great.
I was.
Mostly love handle.
I don't know how.
If you've ever wondered how man can be 3/4 love handle, I showed it's possible yesterday.
It was beautiful.
That was beautiful.
It was beautiful. Okay, well, we're talking about...
Lamashtu, Lamia, Lilith, Lilitu, all kind of become one shared myth. And Lilith is one of those things where sometimes...
I can't move without accidentally spanking.
It's true, because there's so much of me to spank. The truth of it is, though, and what's so interesting about all this, and the whole reason I started this particular little rant, is almost every bloodsucker, not all of them, obviously, but like even the ones that are barely vampires, vampire adjacent, they almost always start here. Yeah. Because the thing is the myths of Lamia end up traveling up and around the Mediterranean and into India and then into Asia.
Okay.
And so like Lamia ends up inspiring like all of those. While Lilitu literally travels downwards through Africa. And then Lilith gets subsumed into Judaism. Yeah. And then during the Jewish diaspora in the Dark Ages, they end up permeating throughout Europe. Yeah. And then vampire... So, like, this is the origin of all vampires, except for Native American.
I love it.
Which is so...
Women winning.
Yeah. So in some ways, like, and I can't believe that people haven't done this. Like, Queen of the Damned, like Anne Rice, Queen of the Damned. Yeah. I'm almost like surprised that we haven't gotten more fiction that's that style, like that really uses Lilith, because she truly is the mother of all vampires.
Have you watched True Blood?
I haven't.
They have a Lilith character.
But is she the mother of all vampires?
She is the mother of all vampires.
Hell yeah! True Blood?
Yeah, True Blood. Fuck yeah.
I don't know if True Blood did that on purpose.
It went off the rails. But I mean, it's true. Lilith is the mother of all vampires. She's the mother of all the undead. Mm-hmm. She is a demon. She is a fallen angel or a fallen being.
A fallen origin being,
stuff is all over on all the vampire stuff is over.
Yeah, it is. No, and that's just kind of true on like Native American, and when I say American, I mean North and South American.
Mosquito Man.
And
Whenever I looked him up, I kept hearing Mosquito Man, like that, like Like
a wrestler entrance?
yeah, or like that's not true at all. And I also like the story that the creator was almost mad that he went after it himself because he got stinged 1,000 times. He's like, "Oh, this sucks."
I love Mosquito Man, but I don't. I'm pretty ignorant to him. Do you know this one?
I read. Well, you suggested it to me.
Yeah, just because I thought it was a fun one.
It could have been a different fable because I'm sure there are a million fables.
Oh, for sure, always
thing,
are.
But it was like Southern New Jersey, which is like, of course, going to have mosquitoes, especially in the humid years. And there was a large creature in which would attack Native Americans and suck their blood and stuff. So they're like, "Oh, creator, please help us." And the creator's like, "Okay, whatever, I'll come down." And so he goes after him and he defeats him. And what happens is from his blood came mosquitoes.
I love it.
And that's how they. And I'm like,
that makes sense to me. I buy it.
I love it. But it's just so funny how it was said like the creator almost half resented that he did this. He's like, "This sucks."
Now there's mosquitoes.
Like, I love it. Like,
I love that even ancient peoples were like, why the fuck are there mosquitoes? Of all animals.
They're horrible. But I love that they made a character. It is a vampire. Because mosquitoes suck your blood. But to me, it's more of a silly story.
Yeah.
And it's not even that silly. It's just
that's part of the reason that a lot of, especially ancient Native American mythologies, that's part of what I love about them, though. We kind of talked about this when we were talking about Norse mythology. Yeah. But one thing I love is that some old pagan religions, like, they didn't take their myths seriously. And I love that. I wish it's really the European bend where suddenly religion becomes something.
And I think that's why people are going back to paganism. Because it's like, I don't want to take this seriously. I just want to connect to something, have a story, tell a story, have a little magic in my life.
Have some wisdom. No, absolutely. And I think, and like Mosquito Man's a great example. Like, here's an origin story that is objectively silly. And probably silly back then.
Everybody's getting wiped out. That's so sad. That's such a bummer. Like, I want to talk about that. Let's talk about when Loki was like, haha, I killed Boulder. That was hilarious.
Exactly. Okay. But so, okay, from here, now we're going to grab, Lilith as her myth. And keep in mind, people were scared of not just like the offspring of Lilith, but specifically Lilith.
Yeah.
For well into like the 1600s. Yeah. Like, Lilith was this boogeyman who would come and eat your baby.
Oh, no. Oh, wait, no. And a boogeyman isn't hot. I would think like, oh, no, I hope Lilith doesn't come and suck my neck.
She did stay hot in most depictions. Okay, good.
Then I would be like, Lilith, oh, no. Don't hurt me.
There's actually...
I'm trying to be like...
I tried to find some stuff on it. That's actually before this started, what I was trying to find. I couldn't...
We have two types of...
Skeeters.
The right ones that fly through the screen door, and the giant ones that open the door and just... Yep, that's true.
Dude, like, you're not wrong, though. Like, have you ever been bit by a tiger mosquito? Have you ever been bit by a tiger mosquito?
I don't want to.
It sucks. So, like, in Houston, we got... you got mosquitoes... Then you get your, like, bigger bayou mosquitoes that are pieces of shit. And then you got tiger mosquitoes, which are fuzzy. And unlike normal ones, you're not just dealing with the itch afterwards. When they bite you, you're like, oh, fuck, what the hell was that? It's awful. It's like being bit by a spider or bee sting. And tiger mosquitoes, they straight up, they'll open your front door and...
Why did you make me afraid of something? I don't like that.
They suck.
Yeah, they suck.
They suck. They're actually...
Get it?
I can't believe I never noticed shit like that. Yeah. I never do.
Yeah.
But they do suck, both literally, and they're the only type of mosquito that when I see one at all, I'm like, no outside today for the next 3 weeks, because I don't want to deal with one.
But yeah, so Lilith was the beginning of everything.
And as the Jewish diaspora started to really supplant itself in Europe, her children, the Lilu...
Yeah, I want to hear more about the babies.
So the Lilu got kind of lost.
Yeah.
They start off as just her offspring with demons.
Now, is this still Lamia?
It's
just everything, because kind of everything. Like Lilith in my hind did not get fucked by, did not get impregnated, but her children, etc. Yeah. And I'm thinking, is it by Adam,
Yeah. No, so her offspring specifically are just the offspring of fallen angels.
Yeah.
That's it. But these offspring, they don't really get subsumed in the Jewish myth, but they stay a part of, like, I'm going to say pop culture because I don't have a better word.
Yeah.
They stay in the Jewish mind at the time. So people who believe in Judaism, who believe in Lilith is real, have a fear of Lilu who are not in their texts. And the Lilu themselves are described in a whole host of ways. And every sub-community, as they spread, they evolve and change further and further and further. And eventually, the Romani people end up taking vampires to the next level. So the Romani, their religions, especially back then, were very unique to them.
Yeah.
And they had a tendency, because the culture itself has never had a state or a place. So because have potentially they've been traveling the entire existence of the people, they pick up religion as they go. And it constantly evolves their own. And eventually, hard side note, close the door, we got to talk about revenants. So,
How do you spell that?
Revenants.
Revenants.
Yeah.
Okay, they said Revnots.
Revnots.
And I was like,
Dun-dun.
Deadnots? Dreadnoughts? Revnots?
So, revenants are the origin of all undead in a folklore sense. Before, animated skeletons and RPGs, before zombie apocalypses and big budget movies, you had revenants. And basically every culture has always had revenants. And unlike vampires, it's not quite as succinct as we can just trace it back to Lilith. There's no origin. It's just people are scared of death.
Yeah.
And people are scared of unfinished business. Revenants, yay, it's both. And there's basically universal agreement. What a revenant is and how it comes to be is if a bad person, a witch, or somebody who commits suicide.
Is this a joke? A bad person and a witch and someone who commits suicide.
No, walk into a bar. No. There's commas between those. If any of those three groups die,
Yeah.
there is a chance that they can come back as a revenant.
Yeah.
But one step worse. So normally, in most mythology, what causes a revenant is if you have really important unfinished business and you can carry it out before your body rots.
Okay.
So if you...
I've heard of this. Then.
Yeah.
That's not something.
And usually they avenge their own deaths. That's her favorite thing to do.
That, I support that.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
would want to be this person if I was killed unfairly or if I was murdered or I would want to come back and I would want to strike fear in this person. And God, you know what? I'll go for the kids. I'll go for the family. I'll do it all. I'm like, all of y'all are getting fucked because of this one person.
Yeah, I know.
And I support
That's
that.
why we support and fear you.
Yeah.
That's the reason.
Remember, most of this has to be...
Ties to fallen fruit, and you're
Yep.
absolutely correct. Yeah. The other thing, with revenants specifically, is though they like to avenge themselves, their unfinished business can take a lot of different shapes. And sometimes, there's even stories of revenants who will be a painter will die before their masterwork is complete. So 2 nights in a row, their family huddles in horror as they see the corpse crawl out of the grave, go into their workroom, and keep working on the painting. And then when the painting's done, they never see the revenant again. That's the types of stories that surround revenants. Well...
Talk about a type A personality.
Not even death can keep them from working.
I can already hear CEOs saying, how can we get that? How can we get zombies to work? How can we do a sweatshop with zombies?
If we ever arrive at a state where there are animated corpses...
Have you seen... You've seen What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And the second season, in the first episode with Haley Joel Osment, when he turns into a zombie, he has a sweatshop.
Oh,
and he
my
uses
God.
his sweatshop. That's perfect.
I actually forgot about that.
Okay, would y'all support zombies in sweatshops?
Not if they were Venture Bros zombies,
Okay.
but if they were straight up completely mindless, hell yeah, let's go.
But then we have to fight people to keep our families left alone.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, yeah.
Yikes. Yeah, capitalists would be trying to increase that murder. Yeah, you're right.
Let me get the body. Okay.
Have you ever seen the movie Fido?
No.
Dude, add that to the list. I gotta make you watch Fido.
I'm gonna put that down. Go on.
And actually, real quick, just zombies happen to come up. I apologize. If you haven't seen the movie Fido, go watch it. It's the classic a boy and his dog story. Exactly that classic trope. It's filmed very 1950s style. So oh gee whiz. But instead of a boy and his dog, it's set in the 1950s after a zombie apocalypse. And then humanity won the zombie apocalypse. But they have, cities that are cordoned off.
Yeah.
And a boy ends up befriending a stray zombie that he ends up keeping as his, pet secret from his family. And it's very good. The fact it's very, Dennis the Menace style, but it's, full-on rated R.
You want to watch that this weekend?
It's actually great.
You should watch it.
It's not like Shadow
Kung Fu Hustle or Fido.
I'll always say, I fucking love Kung Fu Hustle so much.
We'll do a double premiere.
So, in now we're getting to the point.
Yeah.
In Romania, specifically, the revenants end up taking on two different types, which no other culture does. Every other culture, revenants are just people with unfinished business. In Romania, they end up having a different type called strigoi. And strigoi, and sometimes even strigoi hyphen revenant. So it's a type of, it's a strigoi revenant. Strigoi. They, these ones, instead of having unfinished work, they are a bad person, someone with, I already said them. What were, someone who commits suicide.
Yeah. And a witch.
And a witch. And what will happen is their unfinished work is being a horrible little monster. So they die, and then when they come back, they start harrowing and making everybody's life worse. And sometimes in like hilarious ways. Strigoi are really weird, and they do like, and a lot of Romanian folklore has like almost Dr. Seuss level impracticality to it.
Yeah.
So like Strigoi are very strange. I'm not gonna spend too much time on them, but ultimately, now we got to go back to Greece for a second, and back to our Christmas episode for a second.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
So there's a lot of interconnectivity here. So, in Greece, as Christianization is occurring, they had an old festival that happened during winter called Lupercalia. I'm not saying that right, but I don't want to look it up this second. It's something, Lupercalia, right?
Lupercalia.
It's something like that. I don't know. I can't. Regardless, this festival, and actually, Rome called it Lupercalia. Greek called it something else. I can't remember what the Greeks called it. Doesn't matter. This festival, people got really fucking crazy during the winter. Like, really crazy. And a lot of times when modern day stuff says, this pagan festival, people just fucked in the streets and they whipped each other and shit. A lot of times that's lies that was created during the Dark Ages by Christians. Not this one. This fucking festival was crazy, and there was a lot of violence, and a lot of sex, and a lot of nudity, and it lasted for days, and it was super, 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 super crazy. Well, when the festival started, during Christianization, started to disappear and go away, it, along with the Lilu, somehow got crossed.
Okay.
So people remembered the festival in a cultural sense, and remembered that it was crazy, and like sometimes you had to like
How do you spell Lilu?
Lilu. Lilu.
Because Lilo is a vibrate. Like, I didn't know if
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
Never mind. I just went, my ADHD brain was like, that's a brand.
Spanakopita! Yeah, thank you. So what ends up happening is there's like cultural memory of this and like there are some people in these festivals that like would bar their doors and shit because they were so insane and kind of dangerous. I mean, obviously not as crazy as like The Purge, but like same kind of energy. Like it was chaos in the streets. So the Lilu, the children of Lilith, who were dangerous, somehow the Greeks transitioning into Christianity fuse these concepts together. And instead of remembering the festival in a cultural sense, they just remembered that during these weeks you had reason to be afraid.
Yeah.
And then eventually the festival got totally forgotten, and it was because of these monsters. And people during this festival would wear animal masks. And those animal masks, instead of being like, we used to wear those because it was part of the festival, it evolved to
so people forgot why they were doing it. It got less and less clear over centuries.
But then it got even weirder to the point where they weren't doing it.
That's called bad communication in family, intergenerational
it is.
issues.
But they quite literally didn't remember the masks were masks anymore. They'd be like, like some old guy would be describing these events from his childhood and be like, and these half men, half beast burst in my house and they started blah. But like, they weren't lying. They just didn't know what it was because it had been banned for so long.
Yeah.
And so this ended up becoming the Calicantzori, which, if you remember, are the hilarious little Greek trolls that dip their dicks into like cups of tea and stuff and piss on everything. So the myths of the Calicantzori arrive, and then when Christmas starts to happen, they get tied up in Christmas.
Yeah.
Great. Just remember that. That matters for vampires for some reason. So, as the Romani are traveling, and they get into Romania, and they pick up the Strigoi revenants, they also pick up the Calacanthzori. And the Calacanthzori are only active during the Advent days surrounding Christmas, because that's when the festival used to be. So now, they don't know really what the Calacanthzori are, but they pick them up in their own myths. So they go, well, it must be the Strigoi revenants, because they seem to be most prominent during winter. So the Romani people evolve all of these myths together into, in the final weeks of winter, the dead rise to spread ill.
Yeah.
Which none of these individual myths said. But that's what they come to believe. So they have their own monster now, called the Carcancoli, which is not the Calacanthzori. Very fun, similar words, though. The Carcancoli are straight up our idea of, like, almost video game style undead. Yeah. They are walking
aggressive
corpses. They're aggressive.
Attack-ive.
They often wear
high HP.
Sometimes they wear armor.
Okay.
Sometimes they carry swords. And the only goal of the Carcancoli...
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
You're good. The only goal of the Carcancoli is to harm mankind. That is it. There's no negotiation. There's no goals. And because the concept of the Strigoi Revenant sticks with the Romani, they end up evolving all the way to, if a Romani person is a crouchety old guy, just doofus, or a bitch, specifically, like, it's not just unpleasant people, it's like the kind of people you just don't want to hang around with.
Yeah.
If you die and too many of your immediate family members and friends view you like that, then you come back as a Carcancoli.
So wait, so if they see you die, or if they see you die a certain way? Like,
no, it's when you die, if their perception of you was your bitch or your dick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My brain, I guess.
Took that right. No, it's fine. Yeah, but so that's what it is. Just like when you die, you cross this point, and if most of the people that know you view you as a fucking dickhead, then you come back as a Carcancoli. And Carcancoli, their only goal is to kill and to maim. And this ends up picking up an Albanian myth, which I won't get into. And that myth, and here's where we finally get to vampires. That mythological entity, its biggest thing, and I can't remember its name, doesn't matter. Its biggest thing is that its breath would wipe across towns and spread disease insanely, just everywhere. So, because they pick that up as well, now the Carcancoli are dickhead Romani that when they die, during winter, they come back from the dead, spread disease, and chop up people with swords. Remember how early in this you said tuberculosis is like, that's vampires? Yes. So by picking up that final step of spreading disease, we now have the earliest actual vampire. Carcancoli really are them. Now, all these weird restrictions about they only come back if they're a dickhead, they only come back during the winter, that stuff obviously gets lost later. But the fact that it is a person that if you mutilate the corpse, if you do something, it'll stop plaguing you. Yeah. And when it rises, it brings disease. That's where it all ends up coming. So the Romani, while they're trekking around Europe and Asia, they come back into those Jewish communities that are still scared of Lilith and Lilu. And they introduce, and people are, describing their version of Lilu that they're scared of, and they go, oh, we got the scariest ones of all. Your Lilu are they're nothing. They're little bitches compared to ours. Our guy, he comes, everyone in your town gets sick, and anybody who's out after night, they get fucking decapitated. And Europe starts to go crazy. And the very first wave of, like, vampire hysteria.
And this is when?
So, keep in mind, they're not called vampires yet.
Yeah.
So it's like the prototypical wave.
Yeah.
This would be like the 1200s.
Okay.
Because like the first
Because I think a wave of vampirism lasted until like late 1800s.
Oh yeah.
Like we were that.
Oh yeah.
We were really into this until the 1800s, and that is what astounds me.
Absolutely.
And that was only how many years ago? That was
nothing. The most, and I wish I had researched the story beforehand because I'd bring it up specifically, but the most recent case of a family choosing to solve their vampire problem in the traditional ways, the early 1900s, which, like, still a long time ago, but, like, 19s, like, that's
insane to me.
Yeah. And that was, I believe, in America. I believe. I might have that wrong. It might have been Europe. But that, I know for a fact it was the 20th century, which is crazy. But the old ways, don't die. And I will say, for how much shit we talk about the old ways, there's wisdoms there.
Yeah.
Now, taking out the heart of your family member who died of tuberculosis and then making it into a drink and then drinking the diseased heart.
Can you explain, why would you drink the essence of a diseased person? Like, do you think you are taking their energy and what, to me, that's, I think, what I'm so confused about.
Yeah.
Is with, okay, fine, stake in the heart, fine. Okay, putting a rock on top of a coffin, okay.
Yeah.
Why would you ingest a dead person? Like, what do you get from it? Do you absorb anything? That is what astounds me and what confuses me. It's like, that is disgusting.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? And even if you didn't have understandings of bacteria
because
and medical science,
yeah,
why would you do that?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of comes down to the fact that, like, part of the reason that rhinos are so near extinction is because people believe that ground up horn is going to give you a bigger erection. Like, it's literally just, it's like they almost viewed it as inoculation. By taking the heart, you killed the beast, and then by ingesting the heart, you
safe.
Kept yourself safe from the damage.
That's a better way to put it. It's inoculation.
Yeah.
Because to me, I'm just like, do you want to be the vampire? Because I was raised on certain things, like if you eat a certain, like certain movies or certain shows, I can't name them right now, but like if you eat something or get blood on you, you turn into that thing.
Right.
And that's where I'm like,
yeah. Well, and that's actually, I'm so glad he brought that up. Like, so glad.
That's my job.
Because, yeah, the concept of vampires creating other vampires, that came way later. Like,
and usually it was just like there were certain rules to become undead, and now it's like we now have the power to spread.
Yeah, vampires passed to new vampires, same way zombies passed out to zombies. Well, yeah, in the past, it was a lot more like the Carcancoli. Like, here's the checklist. When you died, were you a big dickhead? Congratulations, you're a Carcancoli.
Oh my god, we know so many Carcancolis.
Oh, yeah, we do. Luckily none of them are Romani, so, except for Michael. So
we love Michael.
Yeah,
Michael's a great boy,
and he's not a dickhead, so he wouldn't become a Carcancoli.
He's definitely gonna be a favorite somewhere.
He'll also be a dickhead when he's old, though, and that's fine.
Yeah,
he'll be fantastic.
He's just gonna be a famous courtesan. I really believe it.
Yeah, I hope he succeeds on his makeup and horror makeup dreams. He's a good boy.
We went to a friend's going away party last night. A very dear friend of ours, and he's going to LA to live out his dreams. And he looks like a beautiful courtesan.
He's beautiful.
He's a beautiful, beautiful boy.
Also, for anybody who's come in here recently, we're talking about vampires and vampire-associated surrounding things right now. Thank you so much for stopping in.
Mythology and such.
And just
more than just Dracula. Like, we love Dracula, but there's so much more to it.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting part.
And now...
Vlad Tepes.
Or...
Vlad the Impaler.
Oh, yeah. Vlad Dracula. There we go. I was trying to find his other lost title. So yeah, that's how we get from Lilith all the way ultimately to something that's actually kind of vampire-like.
Yeah.
But once the Carcancoli gets back into Europe, that's when individual European sects start to really run with it. And you wind up with a lot of different regional vampires. But Romania, keep in mind, they're the ones that added the Strigoi revenant to this whole of evolution. So Romania ends up becoming truly, like, the birthplace of the vampire. Sumeria may have been the birthplace of Lilith, the first vampire, but Romania, by saying evil people come back and want to harm you with the Strigoi Revenant, and then by the time that these new European vampires come back to Romania, Romania has added even more kind of rules.
Yeah.
And also, Romania is the only place on Earth today where... where anybody, even lightly, still kind of believes in their version of local vampire.
It feels like, while it's not the birthplace of it, it feels like the biggest claim to fame.
It is.
Or one of, not the biggest, but one of the biggest claim to fame. And I think when that's in your backyard all the time, you eventually believe it. Yeah. You know?
Well, and like the word vampire, originally spelled with Y, like that,
cool way.
That comes from, and actually this is, a lot of people... But sometimes when we engage with fiction that's really silly, we don't realize that, like, they're using real things. Yeah. So, like, Wallachia from Castlevania.
That's a real place.
Yeah, that's a real place. That's in Transylvania.
Yeah, that's
and
a
then some people don't know Transylvania is real. And, like, Transylvania's a real place, and that's in Romania.
Would you like to go?
Hell yeah. Absolutely.
I would like to just go visit Romania. I would just want to go visit it and see the culture.
No, I would be the worst kind of American tourist who'd be like, I'm here for Dracula. I'm sure your culture is beautiful, but this guy's here for Dracula.
And they'll be like, yeah, we know.
Yeah.
It's over there.
Yeah. Well, and do.
They probably have Dracula-themed coffees and cakes.
Also, though, it's interesting, too, because though they do make tourist money on Dracula and don't seem to be super skeeved out by that,
Yeah.
they also, in their history, they view Vlad as a very positive figure. Like, Vlad is not at all a bad guy in Romanian history, which is interesting because in, like, across the borders into the other surrounding European countries, their histories, they're like, yeah, Vlad was kind of,
Well, does Vlad make him a lot of money now?
No, I mean always. Vlad has always been like a national hero to them, way before associations with Dracula. Just Vlad as a Romanian king or emperor, but little emperor. Mm-hmm. He was super, super, super important to them in their history, and they view him as a hero, which is interesting that he's become Dracula over time. And even though they make a lot of money off of Dracula, they're really distinct about separating Vlad and Dracula.
Yeah. Like while he inspired this person, it's very different.
Yeah.
Like Hannibal and Albert Fish.
Yeah. Except both of those guys are evil.
They're horrible.
But one's hot. Yeah.
It depends on the person.
But is Castlevania Dracula there? So I know you're only asking because you want to smooch Castlevania Dracula.
But who doesn't want to smooch Castlevania
Dracula? I will say, I'll be honest, the first time as a kid I was playing a Castlevania game and I saw him have the mustache. I know that, like, Vlad has the mustache and goatee, like real Vlad. Mm-hmm. But I was so used to Bela Lugosi Dracula that when I saw that as a kid, I was like, who the fuck is this guy calling himself Dracula? What the hell is going on? I was very, very insulted. Also, Dracula's, he's not obviously playable, but that Dracula, Castlevania Dracula's in Smash Bros.
Yeah.
And first time.
In the new one?
Uh-huh. Yeah, as I say, he's not playable.
As you can tell, I haven't really touched it much, except when I wanted to get Sora and Sephiroth.
He also, the way that he opens his boss fight is so fucking great, because he has a tiny little cutscene where he's in a chair, and then you come into the space he's in, and he's drinking a big glass of wine, but he's Dracula, and he sees it and he goes, and he throws the glass to the ground and gets up, he's like, let's do this. So, hell yeah.
I love it.
Hell yeah, Dracula. But, yeah, I would absolutely go to fucking Transylvania. That's awesome.
Let's go!
Yeah.
Right, so we're going to Transylvania. I didn't.
You said
Transylvania. We're going to Scrabania. We're going to Transylvania.
So, Romania keeps adding different things to the vampire myth. Eventually, the word vampire.
Yeah.
And the Strigoi Revenant is kind of forgotten as the Carcancoli is absorbed. And now the rules of the vampire kind of change to if you commit suicide, if you die unrepentant, a non-believer of Christ with evil in your heart, or lastly, you're a witch, always, then in death, there's a chance you can come back as a vampire. The last way is apparently Satan has a very special contract that if you want, instead of him giving you magic witch powers in life by signing your name on the dotted line, instead you can have immortality and power in death if you sign your name on this dotted line. And that's that ritual.
Choose your own adventure.
Yeah, hell yeah. Witch or vampire. Halloween
what
powers.
would you be, witch or vampire?
Witch.
Witch
for sure.
I'd be a witch.
Now, that being said, if I could be like a normal Kyle.
Yeah.
But have like the suite of vampire powers.
I would do that too.
The vampire all day long.
I know.
All day long.
I just don't want to be dead.
Yeah. I just don't want to.
When I die, I want to be dead. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
When I die, I want it to be done. Like, I've had enough. I've done this. Hopefully 100 years. I'm out. Maybe
80. Yeah. Dude, I never used to think I'd make it past like 24. So I'm like doing great.
You're just throwing it around.
Yeah,
You're just trying.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to be still here. All right. Anybody who does have access to that keyboard, though, I do need to know, don't worry about the implications. Say you get no downsides. Witch or vampire? Like, which power set would you take? Assuming that, like, even your soul stays all clean and good, too. You're just getting the powers.
I think Nick would be a tornado.
He's not a tornado. Tornadoes are awesome, but you would not be a tornado.
Who would he be, actually? A horse tar?
Why is it from Centaur World? Why?
Because Rachel brought it up, and now I want to keep talking about it. Oh, okay.
So we got to do a Centaur World episode, right?
That's a great idea, actually.
Okay, we claim it's a Centaur episode, but it's
really
actually
Centaur
Centaur
World
World episode.
We're gonna talk about Centaur World, but how, like, I know we're talking about Vlad Tepes and Dracula in Romania, but wasn't there also like the female vampire, like Elizabeth Bathory?
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
in that area.
Yeah.
It was just like,
That's
but she was more of like a serial killer.
Yeah,
she wasn't
she's
really
hungry, but
a
she
vampire.
gets called a vampire frequently,
Yeah.
and for
I don't know. I'm fascinated by her.
oh, she's awesome. And for those who don't know, Elizabeth Bathory Bathory. Yeah, I can't.
Look, we're not here for
It's spelt Bathory, but it's not pronounced that way.
Bathory.
So if you don't know her, real quick, and she's along with Vlad. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Always called, I guess, history's other vampire. She was a powerful noble, and yet also like Vlad. She's not mythological. Like
she's real.
This
She's
is a real
person.
historical woman.
There's so many things on about her, and like this woman would invite peasant women into her castle and be like, "You can work for us, and you have a life," and that was a really big honor because that's a life. That's a full-time job. And her
people wanted to be close to the nobles, even if you were servants.
Yeah. And the family were like, "Where's my daughter?" Oh, well, she's working. They never let them see him because I would think they had holidays and stuff where they were allowed to go see their family. She would kill these women, drain their blood, and bathe in their blood. And I think some sources say she drank it. Some sources say she didn't. She just bathed in it. She used it in cosmetics. But she was a full-on serial killer, psychopathic person. And honestly, when I feel like you're noble and you have nothing to do, I feel like you get a little bored. So what else do you do but divulge in magic to keep you young?
Absolutely. Well, it's the same way that like when you really go back and look at history, we have this tendency, right?
Yeah.
As modern day people, that when we look at history, we view everybody as being like especially heinous, especially cruel to each other. In reality, that's not even really the truth. There's a lot of demonizing by different groups of each other in the past so loudly that a lot of lies about other cultures have entered our historical lexicon.
Yeah.
And so, like, honestly, a lot of like peasants and normal people and whatnot were really chill. They weren't just like murdering each other for entertainment and shit like it sounds like when you look at the past. Unfortunately, one of the problems, though, is that nobles, especially nobles that had never lightly earned a seat, they didn't become nobility via a great accomplishment in war or something. The ones that were like
voting, what's that?
10, 20 generations into it.
Yeah.
A lot of them did get so jaded, and they were so used to their ivory tower in such an extreme way that morally they did become incredibly despicable people, especially because
you think inbreeding had something to do with it?
As a piece, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely. I think inbreeding had a huge issue with mental illnesses, mental, like, psychotic...
instability.
And because you want to keep the relationship pure, and...
No, you're absolutely correct.
No, don't marry that handsome man over there with different genetics. Marry your cousin with the jaw that is not there.
Yeah!
Just...
It's totally true though. Inbreeding was definitely a piece of it. The other thing though, and a lot of people, I don't know why we don't spend enough time like thinking about this when we talk about nobility in the past.
Yeah.
But like what gave the king the right to rule was the church.
Yeah.
And the church, the Catholic Church specifically at the time, they didn't just say like, oh, well, it's good to have a king. That's not how they sold it back then. The Catholic Church sold the right to rule as God appointed.
Yeah.
It was literally, and so if you were a noble child, you were brought up believing that you were handpicked. Everything you had in your life, the reason that you were so wealthy and the peasants were so poor off was because God had handpicked you to be over them.
Yeah.
And as a result, how could you view them as anything but lesser, as disposable? Because they weren't fucking picked.
And that messes with you. That really messes with you.
Now add being raised by people who've received that same message over 30 generations.
Yeah.
It's going to get compounded until you're fucking despicable.
Yeah.
And even actually some of the old pagan emperors, like even during like Roman times and stuff, had the exact same problem. They were also handpicked by God. It was just different gods. And same thing. They became each generation one step worse and worse until eventually the common class was literal just meat and
I guess this is how Elizabeth Bathory viewed it, or her.
Exactly.
Or maybe I don't know anything about her father, her parents.
I will add one thing about Elizabeth Bathory, though, that a lot of people don't know, and this is a kind of recent thing about her.
Yeah.
Which is, in the 90s, there were some very, very old documents found, very, very old, that kind of paint a different picture of her, and they're not conclusive, but it's got the conversation around her a little different, which is there was rival lords that were lesser than her, and they were all male lords, or all houses ruled by males, and these lords, the only thing stopping them from basically ascending like 2 or 3 ranks was the Battery House, and she did not have a husband or any children. And the fact that she was one of the only European nobles who was a woman,
Yeah.
and then their ascension to higher spots
Was blocked by her.
was blocked by her.
Oh.
There is a real possibility that all of her Montrose acts were propaganda.
I'm not surprised if that's true, actually.
Yep. And the thing is, though, is like, there's
Like Queen Victoria fucking a horse.
Yeah, which is also not true. It was also a propaganda hack job. But the Elizabeth Bathory thing specifically, the only reason that people aren't like, oh yeah, that's fucking clearly it, is there is also a good amount of historical documentation that would suggest that it was more than like, at the very least, she was cruel, even if that's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not interesting.
I didn't mean to get us on a tangent. I just love the
No,
vampire.
she's blood. Yeah. She's so tied to it. Which actually, fuck it. Let's go into Vlad, because Vlad's the man.
Vlad is the man.
So, on the context of historical vampires, like real life people, we got Vlad the Impaler, who clear up 4 things right now. First off, there are no myths or legends in which Vlad is a vampire. There's 0.
He's just a warlord, right? And like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Number 2, as I said earlier, in Wallachia, Transylvania, Romania, he's viewed as a cool guy. Number 3, don't necessarily give them all the credit on their historical figure that they like, because their neighbors don't like him very much, and they paint him as a monster. So, and lastly, number 4, the only reason that Dracula is associated with the myth at all is because it happened to be a really tyrannical warlord in the place where vampire myths come from.
Yeah.
Had those 2 things not happened to be laid on top of each other, because Romania is the thing that gave the world the term vampire, the concept of people come back from the dead and do harm. Like, it all comes from Romania. So, a Romanian lord, it's going to happen. Now, Bram Stoker is the author who wrote Dracula, and he is the one who decided to take the historical figure and slap the vampire myths together, because he thought vampires were red. Like, just as a piece of folklore, as myth, like, they are.
Yeah.
And at the time, the only great pieces of literature that existed on vampires were the story of Carmilla.
I love Carmella.
Carmella's awesome.
I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to bring it up.
A lot of people don't realize that.
And it's like lesbian erotic, too.
It is.
It's like,
yeah. And it predates Dracula. People always blame Dracula as like the first real like vampire. But yeah, Carmilla came first. And also, a lesbian-centric vampire story in the fucking 1800s. Like, what the hell?
Great.
Like, what the fuck? How did that even happen?
You have to give the lesbians something. You have to give the lesbians something.
Apparently.
They hold so much together. You gotta give them something.
And then before Carmilla, even before Carmilla, you have the very, very first piece of vampire fiction, which is about, oh my god, what the fuck is his name? The guy who ends up being Death in Castlevania.
Barney.
Barney.
Barney or Barney?
Varney
Barney or
with a
Barney?
V, yeah.
Barney or Barney?
So, Varney of London, which is...
I just love that callback they do.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. It's fantastic.
Now I want to rewatch the series.
So-
So if you guys haven't watched it, watch Castlevania, the series on Netflix. It's actually perfect. It's
Man,
done.
if you like the video games too, it's like incredible.
It's fantastic.
But yeah, Varney of London is the first vampire story. And actually, do you know what? Fuck it. I think Carmilla is actually the first one, but Varney of London was the first one to enter the public consciousness. Doesn't matter. They both predate Dracula.
Yeah.
But Bram Stoker was looking to write his own tale, obviously. And it's not like the concept of like vampire fiction was a genre. Like he thought he was creating something new. And he was very interested in the vampire myth. And he did as much research as the late 1800s heart could on Romania, Wallachia, Transylvania. And he was really interested in the stories of Vlad the Impaler. So even though we're talking about Bram Stoker and him writing the fictional accounts of Dracula, we're real quick going to talk about 2 important things. 1, Renfield syndrome. And number 2, the actual man, Vlad the Impaler. Mm-hmm. First off, Renfield syndrome. Do you know what that one is?
Tell me.
Excellent. Renfeld syndrome is a great mental disorder that occurs in people who drink blood. It is not like everybody drinks blood. It's just common enough in blood drinkers to make you go, that's really weird. Why would that happen to you? And all it does is you stop wanting conventional food and drink.
Yeah.
And all you want is blood.
It's kind of like rabies when you have the fear of water.
I was talking about that yesterday. Ooh, it scares the fuck out of me. It skeeves me out. Yeah, so the only way to get Renfield syndrome, because it's not a disease, it's a mental disorder.
Yeah.
The only way to get it is to drink blood. So chances are, the kind of mind that would be predisposed to it, part of the reason it's so common is because it's the kind of person who would drink blood in the first place. That being said, there's always... Renfield syndrome didn't have the name back then, but it's actually named after a character from Dracula. But it's been around as something that people were kind of aware of for long enough that humanity was just very uncomfortable with it. Because, like, even in BC times, there was that notice that, like, when warrior cultures that would intake in cannibalism and blood drinking as, like, a way of gaining your enemy's power and stuff, they would take notice of the fact that, like, some of these guys would get to the spot where, like, why isn't war happening? Like, I need the blood.
Berserkers.
And, like, that's spooky. That's weird. So that is important. Ties into vampire myth a little bit. And in 1800s, during... 1700s, 1800s, during the height of, like, vampire hysteria, where people knew for a fact vampires are real and they were terrified of them, and vampire hunter was a real job you could go get, which, god damn it, why isn't that today?
We'd be great at it. We could still do something and just...
Be vampire hunters.
Yes.
Which would involve going to goth bars and just asking people if they were vampires.
That is actually a great idea.
That's a good
like
skit.
a great skit.
That's a really good skit.
Like a skit. Like, just go around and be like, hey, so are you a vampire?
Do you know how many yeses we'd get, though?
Yeah, so it's like, but what do we do if they say yes?
Ask them if we can meet Gato.
Meet Gato?
Yeah, because he's claiming he's a vampire. And we can be like...
Oh, Gato.
Yeah.
I thought you said Gato, and I'm like, cat?
No, Gato.
Oh, yeah, no. No.
Lead us to the head of vampire.
That's my end goal in life, is to meet Gato.
Okay, real quick, though. If vampires were real, what are the chances that Gato is
I believe
the
it.
real
But
vampire?
he goes out and... He's Lilith.
Yeah.
Gakuto I believe it.
I believe it.
That man is
That's
so
why you go out in
beautiful.
the sun too, is because he's like.
I wouldn't be surprised
vampire.
if like Gakuto could just if Lilith could change sexes. Like
you
that
dude,
old, you could just
absolutely. Kind of. I mean, she's a proto-primordial...
If you guys don't know who Gakuto is a Japanese pop star who claims he's a 400-year-old vampire, and he was part of the J-rock band, or visual K band, Malice Miser, and it was a goth visual K, which is a huge era in the 90s, and that was my era. That was my era. I love...
No, I mean, the shit was fun.
I bring it back, the wigs, the makeup, everything. I loved it.
It was beautiful. I just love the fact that these vampires.
I'm going to do that for Halloween. I'm going to be a visual K rock band character.
Let's just all do that.
Forever love.
Let's just be a visual K band for Halloween.
I love that. That's actually, let's be Malice Miser.
Oh my
Who wants to be
God.
Mana? You can be
I
Mana.
wanna be Mana.
You can be Mana.
I definitely
I'll
Mana.
be... Well, Clawhaw was the new singer. I guess I could be Gakuto. I'll be Gakuto, yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Sorry,
So
visual K tangent.
ultimately, Vlad theme powder. There we go. That's where I'm going to go next. So during vampire hysteria in the 16, 17, 1500s, all 300 years of fear of vampires. During this period of time, Renfield syndrome ends up being proof that though vampires are corpses brought back from the dead, that some vampires, and the myths never really got it straight why, but some vampires could avoid looking like the dead. Okay. And these ones could live among you and take advantage of that. And this is where you get those absolutely horrific accounts of a lot like witch burnings. Yeah. Where you start getting public executions of people. Yeah. Because they are vampires. And this is the the kind of the worst that vampire hysteria gets. The thing that's interesting, though,
and I think both of us have a line where believe what you want to believe, but when you hurt people, you're done.
Yeah.
Like, we're done. Like, we on this, we respect cultures, all this, but if there's a facet of the culture where you hurt people on really stupid basis,
I don't care how old
we're going to critique the shit out of it.
Now, during this time, though, when this was kind of going on, one of the things that's interesting is, remember when we were talking about skinwalkers?
Yeah.
And you kind of asked, like, was this the mythological way to explain, like, the sociopath?
Yes.
One of the things that's interesting is if you actually read some of the accounts of the people who were killed as vampires, like, they were obviously unwell. Like, it wasn't, because, like, with witch trials, it's not like
something
that.
was off.
Right. With witch trials, it's like, literally, were you an unwed woman?
And you had a big mouth.
You don't even got to go that far. Like, were you 30 and unwed? You're a fucking witch. Burn. Like, that's really how witch trials kind of work. It was just bullshit.
Well, also, like, with the Atsy fly, which we were talking about, which is an African type of vampire, which turns into a firefly, which can snake between cracks and such, and it infects people. It's also, like, a lot of it's also women. Like, if an unruly woman, and it's like, oh, you just don't want to question how you, like, your society sucks and it's affecting women and they're angry.
Yep.
It's, oh, she's possessed. So it was a way to explain behaviors. It was a way to explain away anger. And nobody wanted to take responsibility because they didn't have that kind of forethought yet.
No, not at all.
It was just how things were done. But yeah, like, this woman's angry for probably a lot of good reasons, but because she's not following the biblical or whatever way of being.
She's being a Lilith.
Like, oh, she's been possessed. So a lot of it is just, it's just a way to get rid of people.
Yeah.
It is literally excuses to get rid of people. And when you find yourself correct, or you have in your mind, like, God is speaking to me, or this thing is speaking to me, or you get full of yourself and you take actions that you shouldn't be taking. So to me, that's really what, with the vampirism, is like, this person's weird. Maybe they're autistic. Maybe they have Asperger's. Maybe they, so obviously something's wrong. And like how changeling babies were kids who maybe had some symptoms of stuff, Yeah. Like,
no, absolutely. Yeah, it's true.
And I think, is it a weird way of just disguising your hatred and you just wanting to hurt people?
Yeah.
I think that, or hurt the different kinds of people, because tribalism is so bad.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No,
You're not like us, bye.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, like, the people who were killed as vampires in these trials were almost always, now, that being said, the brand of it, less so, like, changes and stuff. It seemed to generally be sociopathic tendencies.
Yeah.
That seemed to be the thing that would get you as a vampire.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the other thing was being overly eccentric night owls, which means that I would have been fucked.
Oh, yeah.
It's all right.
Because they have, like, excuse me, didn't every town have maybe, like, a curfew?
Kinda.
Yeah, so
there was an acceptable time to be out.
Yeah.
So during this time, while this is fucking happening, actually the very beginnings of it, you have the legends of the very important Romanian figure, Vlad Tepes, or Vlad Dracula. And a few things that make him very interesting is he existed at a time and in a region and had a particular family line where it would be really easy for him to be either Christian or Muslim.
Uh-huh.
And he had a lot of say over which way he was going to be.
Yeah.
And depending on what era of history we're looking at, you actually wind up with totally different indications of whether he was a Muslim king in a Christian country, or whether he was a Christian king and Muslim. And it's very kind of loosey-goosey there. It's very interesting. And, man, there are people who have very strong opinions about that today. But, like, realistically, it's never really, we don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of lost. But he developed, a lot like Elizabeth Bathory, he developed a lot of lore surrounding him that might be true.
Might not be.
But it might not be. It might be, yet again.
That's the thing about history. We'll never know.
We'll never know. One of the things why he earned the name Vlad the Impaler was it was known that his most absolute favorite way to show off his might is he would, worse than that, he would take trees, chop them in half, cut the top to a thing, and then impale. When he would defeat a group in battle, he would do this to a number of trees equal to the number of enemy soldiers. And then he would just make a forest of corpses. So trees with bodies impaled on them. Generally, when this would be done, the trees would, I say cut in half, but I don't mean down. They're usually cut to lengths of 10 to 12 foot tall. So putting the bodies on the trees was hard, which would just added to how horrifying it was. All the branches are gone. Suddenly you can see the sun, and instead of branches and fruit, it's just corpses. And they're not hanging from shit. They're impaled on the trunks of the trees themselves. So this makes him become...
Bye, Liger. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for being here. But that makes him Vlad the Impaler. And he becomes very, very famous for this. Now, is any of that real? We have no idea. There is a lot of reason to believe
Did
it
you
is.
take a picture?
What?
Right?
There's a lot of reason to believe it is real, though. A lot of reason. Still possible it's not. And he also only did it after battle. He was a very sharp tactician.
Yeah.
And this is what would happen to people who... Hell yeah, Michigan Slim! What's up?
Hey, baby!
And then there's certain historical events, yet again, that are attributed to him that, yet again, may be true. But we don't know. It might be propaganda that came later to demonize him. One being of a time in which he was being critiqued and criticized for his cruelty. So in order to prove that he was not, he invited a lot of peasants from the people surrounding his castle for a feast to enjoy in the bounty of Wallachia and everything that he'd done. And they came in and they feasted and they had a good time. And then he closed all the doors and burnt it all down. And so then all these innocents that were his own people are just burnt to death for no reason. And yet again, did this happen? We have no fucking idea, but it is attributed to him. And as a result, when he died, there was a long... He has a very long shadow on history.
Yeah.
And he was reviewed, as I said, by the enemies of Transylvania, Wallachia, Romania. He was viewed as a monster.
Yeah.
His own people loved him.
Loved him.
They loved him. And unrelated to him, this is the part that everybody gets fucking wrong. Completely unrelated to him. There was a castle that was built 200 years after he died. And that castle was thought to be haunted by a Strigoi revenant. No joke, full circle. So, in that region, people were experiencing, most likely, tuberculosis. Most likely. But people were wasting away, their blood getting drained each night. And no one could track a particular origin to any particular corpse or recently dead person or whatnot. And this castle had a series of misfortunes. And this is not actually in Wallachia. This is just in Romania as a whole. But they started to blame the lord that had died in this castle. And they were saying that when he died, he was already a bad, unpopular lord. And I'm not even sure if we have this guy's name. I'm not sure. I don't remember how much hearsay this is. Regardless, though, they started blaming the dead lord of this castle. Would sneak out of the night and prey on the surrounding towns. And this is 200 years after Vlad was even a thing. But one of the things that leads to Vlad becoming Dracula is this separate, very nearby vampire lord, basically. Yeah. And so, Bram, and thank you for correcting me earlier. Once I get stuck on a mistake, I'll repeat it over and over. Bram Stoker ends up he doesn't go to Romania. He doesn't check out Wallachia. He doesn't go to Transylvania. He just does research from a distance. He's like, I'm sure this will be perfectly accurate and totally respectful. And he rolls it all together and creates the character Dracula. Mm-hmm. Now, last piece. A lot of vampires can shapeshift. It's not super rare, especially from the Greeks. Ones that their vampire myth started with Lamia have ones that will turn into owls and into various birds. Mm-hmm. And earlier I talked about the Lamitu. And that thing, all it does is drain blood and shapeshift.
Well, I also love the Chon-Chon from...
What's the Chon-Chon?
The Chon-Chon is... hold on, let me...
That's the one I'm unfamiliar with.
The Chon-Chon is... Hold on. Oh, no, where is it? No!
You just tell me what you remember. It's okay.
Chile, Argentina. And it's like just the shape of the human head.
Oh, Chon-Chon! Yeah, Chon-Chon.
It's got feathers and it's like, woo!
Yeah.
I love that.
I always forget
That's my favorite because instead of the intestines, just wow.
Yeah. Well, I like anything where there's so many stupid monsters where ears become wings. And that's so dumb. I love it. I love any time a culture decides that that's a cool way to fly around.
I love you have these terrifying things where people cut their bodies apart and their intestines fly around and they're snakes and they're this and they just have the chon. Like, I'm gonna get you.
I like the feathery.
Yeah, they look like
Delightful.
angel wings. I'm like, that is hilarious. They're little parakeet wings. So I'm just.
I absolutely adore
So
it.
go on.
No, you're good. I can't.
Can you imagine like a head going rawr and trying to attack you when you?
Absolutely,
Rawr?
only because of the movie Houseu though.
Oh, you guys need to watch Houseu.
Everybody needs to watch
It's
Houseu.
very good.
It's fantastic. But so this Dracula gets made, enters the public consciousness, and then people who read Dracula, suddenly vampires have a second wave, but it's no longer vampire hysteria and like a legitimate fear of vampires. It's now the pop culture vampire is born. Dracula is the origin of it. And the pop culture vampire immediately picks up a trait that's been missing, a very important trait, being sexy. Dracula is really the origin of that.
Well, I think also a lot of like originally vampires were more not lower class but regular class, you know, and now all of a sudden this is the first instance of a demonic
society.
being high society.
That's funny.
And
I hadn't even really thought about that. You're totally right.
Sexy because it's money and you can eat and have nice clothes. So it was. I mean, you're not a smelly peasant anymore who's been dug up in your heart. Because you're untouchable as a noble. You can't touch this body. You can't kill this person. He has full power.
Well, and he has a harem of women who are all, the protagonists describe as like incredibly desirable. And then he's charming. And that's actually a piece of him. And you can see how immediately it just infects all the rest of the pop culture that follows.
And I think that was a real... Excuse me, I keep yawning. I'm so sorry. But... Because who doesn't love a charming monster, right?
Oh, yeah,
Because it just used to be mindless, hungry, like, I just want to survive. And now it's like, I just like doing this and drinking wine.
Right.
Which I can't do right now because I have a tooth taken out and I don't want to get alcohol poisoning. But all I want is wine. I want to wine on weekend. I usually don't drink on the weekend. I'm about to drink your blood.
It's okay.
I'm going to drink your blood.
Okay. This is your vampire origin story.
Yes.
So, with... this moment, this boom in pop culture vampire, not only do Carmela and Varney of London get
I gotta watch that. I'm sorry, I have to watch that whole season again. It's so good. Watch Castlevania.
Not only do they get carried upwards by this, but suddenly there's a huge host of imitators that also try to pull off their own Dracula-esque stories. And the pop culture swell is so massive and so effective that the simple act of everybody suddenly knowing what vampires are means that nobody believes in them anymore.
Yeah.
It is the death blow for vampires as a myth.
Yeah.
Most other myths sizzle out.
Yeah.
But now it wasn't something that seemed like it could happen in your graveyard.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that a corpse. It was very clearly a fabrication, very clearly a character. And because not everybody was familiar with the old myths, they just didn't have the ability to hang on. Now, the exception is in very rural regions of the home countries of the vampires, like Romania.
Yeah.
Those become the only places where the vampire myths stay all the way into the 1900s. But there's one exception, exactly one. And that exception is New Orleans.
Woo! So, we love New Orleans here.
For whatever reason.
Happy Mardi Gras, by the way.
France had a very interesting relationship with the vampire and vampire myths and whatnot. And even early on, like when the Carcancoli was the proto-vampire, anytime the French picked up vampire stuff, they weren't instantly sexy, but they were much more likely to be among you. Yeah. Being social, living with you, instead of being a corpse that was coming in. So their vampires diverged from the more zombie-esque vampire immedially. And when the pop culture event that was Dracula occurred, French understanding of vampires went, yeah, that's kind of what we've been doing. So like
French make everything sexy.
Yeah, exactly.
And also there is the aspect of nothing is more sexy than when a powerful being likes you.
Oh yeah.
It is erotica. There are so many books based off of this. There's nothing better than when you catch the attention, and this can go for men or women. Like, well, Carmela's gay. She's a lesbian. It's a lesbian erotic novel, but it's just, there's nothing more sexy or feeling good of like, oh, this thing chose me, I'm special.
Totally.
And also, who doesn't like the allure of eternal beauty and powers and flying? Like, who doesn't like that? So it's like, instead of what can I be afraid of, it's like, how can I masturbate?
That's, isn't that the ultimate?
I know, right?
But yeah, so the French just say, fuck it. We like this sexy ass vampire. That's already what we've kind of been doing. And both surrounding and before the rise of Dracula, this makes its way to America, in Louisiana Purchase, yada yada. And not all of Louisiana, but specifically New Orleans, when those African vampires who have stuck around in voodoo, hoodoo, and hoodoo start to make their way into America, these two myths meet again, and a totally new, the last type of vampire is born. And so the New Orleans vampire, or the French vampire, which disappears from France entirely, and eventually is just a Louisiana thing.
Yeah.
But the French vampire really is like the last real mythological folklore vampire. And this is the vampire that Anne Rice clings to.
Yeah.
So Anne Rice wasn't just following up Bram Stoker's work and redefining the vampire in the modern era. The concept of vampires, like, yeah, they were dead. They were corpses.
Yeah.
But they liked their immortality.
Yeah.
And, like, they didn't want to be monsters. They learned to live with being monsters. All of that wasn't invented by her. That was what New Orleans did to the vampire myth.
Yeah.
And Anne Rice saw as a really wonderful playground. And she just wasn't wrong. Like, hell yeah. Give me some incredibly homoerotic vampires.
And, like, it's just in the allure of New Orleans.
Oh, yeah.
The
vibe of the South.
And
Totally.
That's my impression of the French.
You're right.
Which is funny because I'm Acadian.
For a second, I thought you were clearly French. Yeah.
I mean, it already started with Dracula, but that really put the nail in the coffin of, like, this is everybody's, like, this is fuck dream. And then you had Twilight, and then you have, Van Helsing and all that.
Now you
and then
are
Castlevania, the game series, and Alucard was sexy as fuck.
Oh, hell yeah.
The Dracula character was sexy as fuck. So, thank you, Bram Stoker.
Yeah, that's...
Because we went from a long way where we were talking about non-European vampires earlier, of intestines and gross shit just hanging out and flying around and being disgusting to,
to the sexy vampire. Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's also interesting, like, if we do roll it back, like I said at the start of this, if we roll it all the way back to Lilith, like, ultimately, vampires are just a fear of disease mixed with a want to protect your children who are really, sometimes they just fucking die.
It gave personification, and it gave you a feeling of control. Because I can understand if there's something going around in your town and you're scared for your family and you want, like, I don't know about you, but my anxiety, I act on it. Like, I'm a fighter. I'm not a flighter. So when my anxiety kicks in, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do everything I can to fix this situation. And a lot of ways, that's helped me a lot. In a lot of ways, I've lost a lot of sleep, and it's not good. But I would definitely be one of those people of, like, who do I have to kill to make sure I'm okay, my family's okay? And especially with ignorance and lack of education, fear peeks out in different ways.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, I mean, just like any other episode we've talked about, that's like all these monsters, almost all of them.
So do we want to fuck illness? That's the question.
Did we make vampires sexy because we really want to fuck that TV? Hell yeah.
Blood as lube. Oh, that went too far. That went a little too far. My bad, guys.
I've known 3 different people with blood fetishes.
You do, and I know one of them.
You know one of them.
Do I know any? Do I know the other?
No, you don't know the other two.
Damn it. He knows 2.
But you do know one of them.
Yeah, like that. I'm not gonna tell the story because I don't want to give anything away or anybody away. I mean, yeah, like,
yeah, no, not at all.
Like, you had so much power and control in those times and education. What are you going to do? Just let shit happen? I mean, I still can't get over the burning of the heart and the ashes and drinking it. That, for people who are just now coming, we were talking about how what they would do is they would see if a body was decomposing fast, like, quickly. And the thing is, if you're stored in a cold temperature, you're going to decompose slower.
Yeah.
And, like, the fingernails, the hair bullshit,
No,
Yeah.
and they viewed all of that though
Yeah.
as signs that the body was still growing after death. That
Yeah.
the hair was getting longer and the nails were growing longer because the body was still active.
Yeah.
And the last piece too would be blood around the mouth. And then when they would wipe the blood away,
Yeah.
they would check the corpse days later, and there would be more blood around the mouth.
Yeah.
And then when they checked it inside the mouth, that would be filled with blood, but like the corpse would be dry and stuff. And they viewed that as like this is signs that it is drinking blood, when in reality it's a strange part of rot.
I meant the blood as a lube thing. Great. I love how I said so many poignant things, but blood as lube is here.
You said that too, and it was also poignant. So
I mean, I would know I'm a girl.
oh, high five. So I like sometimes when we're nearing the end of one of these, I do like to read a story or something. I just don't have one today, which makes me really sad. Today though, my just one little event is there is a figure from history named Mercy Lena Brown. And
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
This story.
And so I'm
this is recent too.
It is
recent.
Recent in the grand scheme of things. So and if I bastardize any of this, I apologize. I'm not reading it directly from the phone because it would just be too long. But Mercy Lena Brown was one of the very, very last cases of people taking vampirism very seriously and going about the old methods of trying to solve a problem. So in a nutshell, this is in America. This is in the Northeast. And the old ways have mostly been totally lost. And this is after Dracula was published also. So, like, the public consciousness, people don't believe in vampires anymore. Mm-mm. But, like, ultimately, the old ways never truly die. Mm-hmm. And there is still people out there, and more people out there, who, when people started wasting away in their small community, they knew what was causing it. So, Mary Lena Brown, she has a few family members die of, they called it at the time consumption.
Yeah.
But TB.
Moulin Rouge. That's what Nicole Kidman died of.
And the reason that consumption or tuberculosis was and is, but especially was such just a nightmarish illness is it never seems to come from anything. With a lot of other illnesses, like, when you start to get sick, you go, fuck, I did talk to that guy and he was coughing a lot.
Yeah.
But when TB first enters a community, you can almost never track where it entered from.
Yeah.
Everybody's okay, and then one day somebody's fucking super dying. And the speed at which you waste away is horrible. And you just shed weight over and over. And then, like, there's also really weird signs. So, like, this is a strange example. There's a fairly common, in quotes, it's not that common, genetic disorder that makes you extremely sensitive to sunlight. And it has nothing to do with being an albino. It's you can be totally just regular, and then, like, the sun will not only make your retinas, like, incredibly painful, but also your skin will experience sensations of burning, though you're not getting sunburnt. It's not that rare at all, and one of the weirdest things TB does is if you have a genetic predisposition to that and it's not active in you, the simple act getting TB will activate it, which is wild. So now you have people who are wasting away who are also getting really sensitive to light, which is wild. So obviously it's supernatural in origin because, like, sickness doesn't make you weak to light, and light's something God's given us. Like, you can understand the old mindset. So as people in our family are wasting away, shedding 150 pounds, then dying, and nothing will protect them,
that's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
That's too...
Oh, no, they become, living skeletons before you die. And the only... People get desperate, right? So in this case, the family kind of fight... They don't fight off. Enough of them die, and then it stops happening. They're like, oh, thank God. It's done. Whatever it was. And they never blame vampires on it. This family doesn't believe in fucking vampires. But eventually, she gets it. Yeah. And when she gets it, her father is so fucking desperate because he's lost 4 sons to this. And apparently he was a super kind, very sweet man. And ultimately, to skip some stuff. Just it's been a while since I've specifically ingested the story. I don't want to get too much wrong, so I'm going to skip some stuff. But the gist is, his physician that he used for all of his other sons clearly wasn't working, and the physician was telling him like, it's a fucking illness, and it's bad. So he gets weak, and he decides that he's going to ask other sources. And there was this priest who wasn't like a high-ranking priest, who was very, 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 very old-fashioned. It was like, this is a fucking vampire.
Yeah.
Like, I know it is. And so, in order to protect her, he ends up suggesting what you have to do. And what was believed, and what was believed for centuries, is if you were being harried by a vampire, it would target you. Like, the vampire always had... They wouldn't just drink blood indiscriminately. They would drink the blood of some people that were, like, close to them. Mm-hmm. So, generally, whoever died of TB last... That was the vampire. That's the way it worked.
Kind of like the Etsy fly.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's someone close.
Yeah.
So, he ends up suggesting them the only way to solve a vampire, what they believed, is you had to dig up the body, and then if it was a vampire, if you could prove it was, because they had all the signs, you would then have to cut out their heart, and then with that heart, you would basically burn it, grind it up, and make a drink out of it. And when you drank the heart, not only were you killing the vampire, but also, more importantly, the damage it had already been done to you would get undone.
Yeah.
So this guy is told, like, we're going to have to dig up your son, who you love very much, and we're going to have to tear out his heart and then mutilate it, and your daughter's going to have to drink that, and that's the only way to protect her. And
I thought it was vice versa. I thought she died. Her heart.
It is. You're absolutely correct. She died before the brother. You're absolutely correct.
Okay.
As I said, it's been a long time.
For a second, I thought it was like,
totally
hey,
correct.
The first son died, and then ate it, and then she died, and then the next son ate it.
It's 3 sons, then her, then son. Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
Okay.
Thank you for the catch too.
No, yeah.
As I said, it's been a while.
I reread it today. That's why
I have not read it in
a
very long time. But thank you.
We are not professionals.
Yeah.
This is fun.
So ultimately, the man says, I don't want to fucking do this. Like, I don't desire to.
Yeah.
And he pushes the priest away. But then, as the symptoms get worse, he gets desperate. So he ends up saying, fuck it, and agrees. And they, sure enough, and you can imagine how traumatic this is. Like, you just lost this son. But fear will do that to people. So, or her. And dig up the body, cut out the heart, char it, make it into potion, and then it's drank by both the son and the father, because that's what will protect him going forward as well. And then, ultimately, word finds out about this event, and it's so, even then, this is the, late 1800s, very early 1900s, it's like 1899 or something. People view it as very barbaric, and they want to punish them for this. But ultimately, like, in some ways, they're victims to this. Like, they're victims of, A, their own fear, and B, this, old-fashioned priest trying to push these very ancient rituals on them. But it is, as I said, it's one of the very last cases of, like, people acting out of a true belief of the vampire, even if they had to be convinced that it was a vampire instead of a traditional disease. And it's wild. It's wild to think that, that happened. That
was literally 1850? 1870s?
Oh, no, way more recent. It's 1890s. 1890s.
Yeah, that's what I meant. It was in the 1800s, and that's nothing. That's 100 plus. That's it.
Yep. And since then, there have been a few other little, like, vampire instances. In 1984, there was a string of murders in New Orleans that a lot of people believed were done by vampires. 9 people who died and had a strange amount of blood missing. That got blamed on vampires.
Do they know what it was?
Nope. They never figured out what it was. And, weirdly enough, for the 9...
Chupacabra.
They were probably... Hell yeah, Chupacabra. The 9 victims were actually completely unrelated to, so it probably wasn't even like a serial killer. It probably was coincidence.
Yeah.
But it was weird how much blood they were missing, so that really triggered a lot of people's imagination. There's a cemetery in London that people even today firmly believe has a vampire living in it, and, like, insanely believe it, aggressively. There's people who try to spot it and stuff. And there was a series of things that happened in the 80s that are all blamed on that vampire.
You have to give me the name of the cemetery later.
I might have it. If I don't find it
now.
in 1 second, then
Give it to me now.
all right. But and then you have serial killers. There have been a few, not many, and not any that are like super incredibly famous, but there are a few that the whole reason they did everything they did is because they thought they were a vampire. Like their psychosis, they didn't just have Renfield syndrome. They truly believed they had become a vampire.
I think there was even like a TLC thing about a couple that thought they were vampires and they wanted to invite another girl. And like, it was like, ooh, okay.
People, man. People are fucking crazy.
I know. I think we've talked about this before where reality is so depressing, we'll do anything to kind of have that bit of fantasy and magic.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just that to me, it's one thing to believe in fairies.
Yeah.
And like, ooh, gnomes and ooh, someone's messing up my keys. I bet it's the gremlin in my house.
Right.
And it's legit, no, I want to suck blood. And I'm like, ugh.
I didn't find the one I wanted, but
okay.
I did find the other one.
Okay.
So the Hollywood Cemetery, which is not in Hollywood, that's the name of the cemetery, has been purportedly haunted by vampires since 1925, and yet today, the same way people go to Murpha to see the Murpha lights, like you can literally have groups of people who will go out to try to spot this vampire leaving his mausoleum.
That poor guy. He's like, I'm just trying to live, man.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to fucking live.
No, it's...
Literally, I'm trying to fucking...
I mean, yeah, he needs the fucking blood. Yeah, I don't know, it's interesting. I'm not... So, for the record, I'm going to put it out there, I'm going to lay it out there. Obviously, of the things we've talked about, I always like to leave a little bit of wiggle room for belief. Yeah. Vampires, for this guy, that one, that's a hard no. I absolutely do not believe in a vampire. It's a hard no.
When it comes to spiritual things, I'm more wiggly.
Yeah.
Because I don't know.
Yeah.
But when it comes to... to me, it's obvious it came from fear of diseases and not understanding.
When you can track the origin.
Yeah, when you can track it. Lilith started it all.
Yeah, Lilith is the first vampire from there. And not that she was a vampire.
And
but
what was the Mesopotamian name for her?
All kind of together. Lamashtu, the Lamia, Limitu, or Limiti, or Limuti, and Lilith. They're all together they're all one myth, just a lot of different cultures, interpretations of them, and that is the birth of all vampires.
Yeah.
But I think that's about...
That is kind of it. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody want to say anything? Is there anybody who popped in? Hello, hi. This is a Twitch stream. We're just hanging out and having a good time and enjoying ourselves. We do this for fun. Yeah, fucking... Wait, hold on. I'm going to look up really quick what's next week, because I actually,
I know, we have a document, and we never go and check beforehand.
We never do it. Hold on. And now it's so Poltergeist. We're doing Poltergeist next week.
Very excited for that.
So around this time, we should have said something on our socials that we weren't streaming last week.
Oh yeah.
It was the Super Bowl.
It happens.
And I was coming back from Dallas for something, so
yeah.
By the way, we look great. Look at this.
I always look great.
Oh.
But yeah, I think we can close it out.
I think we're done. We're done. But guys, next week we're talking about Poltergeist. That's going to be a personal favorite of mine.
Me too.
I love Poltergeist. I'm just going to shove you out and be like, okay, we're about me today. I love anything with maybe it's the Catholic in me. I'm not really a practicing Catholic, but I was raised Catholic, which is funny because my mom doesn't know anything about ghosts or poltergeist. We weren't raised on any of that, of demonology, but for some reason, I love it.
Well, it's just fun. It's a fun thing.
But you guys, thank you guys so much.
Yeah, any of you who are here, any of you who
we
left.
missed this.
Yeah.
After not doing it for a week, I was like, damn, I missed this. Kisses. Bye, guys. Thank you, guys.